Oh hey guys, Ivan the intern here, going through all the mail we're still receiving for Ask Ivan here in the OverThinker's massive mail storage facility. Yeah, we have this, which is kind of strange because we've never actually posted a mailing address. In fact, we're not even doing this by email, we're just using the comment section of this blog post. Huh. But yeah, here we are, and if you haven't gotten your question in yet, do it soon, because after Friday, January 24th, we're gonna stop taking questions. So go to that blog post and get them in there. Anyway, we know this has been taking a little while. Ironically, one of the reasons for that is we're putting some new stuff into the pipeline to make sure we're bringing you new content more frequently. For example, today we wanted to bring you an optimistic looking forward to the new year thing. But then a bunch of stuff happened with Nintendo and we figured you'd probably want to know what our resident time-displaced Golden Age nostalgia expert has to say on the matter. So, Retro Thinker?
Yes?
We need to talk to the people about the Nintendo thing.
Do we have to?
Yes.
But we already did.
I know, but this is for the benefit of the folks at home.
How does that work?
You talk, I play devil's advocate.
I don't know why we have to involve Mr. Phibb. Can't you just ask a bunch of leading questions that you already know the answer to in order to provoke the desired response?
Let's just get started. So, Retro Thinker, why don't you bring us up to speed on 2014's early not-so-great Nintendo news?
So, Nintendo released their sales figures for the end of 2013 based on their holiday performance, and the news isn't good. See, they'd projected, which means promised their shareholders, that they'd sell 9 million Wii U's by March of this year. Now they've had to admit that this just isn't possible, and they're probably going to only sell around 2.8 million. 3DS sales were also strong, but not as strong as they'd projected either, and nowhere near strong enough to make up for what the Wii U is losing. Basically, they're all but guaranteed to lose about 25 billion yen by March of this year.
I'm not up on my Asian currency exchange rates. What's 25 billion yen in dollars?
It ain't good.
So scale of 1 to 10, how dire is this situation?
Satoru Iwata says there's putting serious consideration into smartphone development.
Isn't that kinda like a vegan deciding the little McDonald's might be alright after all?
Pretty much.
So, pretty bad.
The fact is, much as I, and from what I gather a lot of other people might like it, the Wii U isn't selling, and it isn't going to sell. Not in the numbers that make any kind of difference when you're talking about wooing third-party titles, negotiating for floor space, and trying to convince your shareholders and board of directors that everyone from management on down deserves to keep their jobs. And it's not like they've got 100 other products to offset this kind of loss. They've got one other product. If this was a Western or especially American company, I think heads would be rolling right about now.
Alright, that angle I legit just don't understand. Never have. What does Nintendo being Japanese have to do with any of this?
Almost everything. Japanese corporate culture, especially the old guard traditionalist strongholds like Nintendo largely still is at the director and shareholders level, is different in that long-lived companies tend to still be dynastic, or at least fancy themselves as such. The American corporate goal in the 21st century is to grow as large as you can as fast as possible by any means necessary and then bail out with as much money as you, the top guy, can pocket when it eventually buckles and collapses in on itself. Lather, rinse, repeat. The Japanese corporate culture, idealistically, at least, is to stay in business, even if that means readjusting in some way.
So an American company would have thrown in the towel after the GameCube?
Probably, yeah.
But they can totally still turn this around, though.
How?
They just need to release the big games.
Which big games?
Zelda, Donkey Kong, Star Fox, Metroid, F-Zero, Smash Brothers, Punch-Out, Kid Icarus, Kirby, Pokemon, Starfy, all the things.
You're playing my song, fairy friend. There's just one problem.
What's that?
Most of the people who are going to buy a Wii U for those games already bought one.
Do you think the name was a problem?
The name? Yeah, it's a problem, but it's not the problem. Neither is the marketing. They've been telling people what it is, people just aren't buying.
That doesn't make any sense. The original Wii was so dominant.
Ivan, the PlayStation 3 was a third-place finisher after the PlayStation 2 had dominated consoles like nothing ever had before. Star Trek V followed Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. Ronald Reagan was followed by the first Bush.
I wasn't nuts about either of those guys.
Yeah, but I'm sure we've got some Republicans watching. You gotta throw them a bone once in a while. In all seriousness, though, the Wii was a phenomenon. It just looks like it's not a phenomenon you can recreate in today's circumstances. The sad fate of the Wii U will unfortunately be seen by many as emboldening the mythology that the Wii itself wasn't a real success because its sales were based not on games, but on the selling of a motion control gimmick to non-gamers and soccer moms. But that was always elitist bullshit. The success of the Wii wasn't about selling out to non-gamers, it was about creating and reawakening overlooked aspects of the audience, largely bypassing the prime audience of the Xbox and PlayStation, reconnecting with the Nintendo faithful, yes, but also inviting everyone else into the club. The recognition that a lot of so-called non-gamers were actually just not gamers yet, and it worked.
Oh yeah? Then where did they go?
What, the so-called casuals? They went to other platforms.
Oh, come on. Tablets and phones are not real gaming platforms.
They are now.
Do you play on them?
Well, no, I don't, but I don't have a PlayStation 3, a PlayStation 4, or an Xbox One either. If there's one thing that's working against Nintendo more than anything, it's that they've always been a slow-to-evolve, change-averse company, once again in that classical Japanese corporate mentality that served them well up to this point, but the world moves faster than ever. The Wii launched in 2006, a year before the very first iPhones hit the market, and thus well before touchscreen mobile gaming was really a thing, let alone being ubiquitous. Now, almost 8 years later, aka a goddamn eternity in consumer technology years, no, not everyone has a smartphone or a tablet, but enough people do. The entire industry outside of Nintendo never saw the Wii coming. Nintendo failed to see this coming.
But the games.
I know.
Super Mario 3D World is one of the best games of the year, especially compared to the anemic launch libraries for the PS4 and Xbox One.
The choir, you're preaching to it.
This is really, finally where we're at. Legendary series, iconic characters, legacies of quality and vision and imagination and wonder, stretching back almost to the birth of the medium itself, and that's not enough of a draw to compete against Candy Crush on one side and Call of Duty on the other. After everything, this is where it ends up. This is what it's all come down to. For the last major significant game company from the Golden Age, still carrying some sliver of heart and soul of gaming into the future. This is it.
You don't think this bothers me? You don't think the prospect of what we're facing bothers me? It's one of those hard truths the Overthinker is so damn fond of. Just because you're the best doesn't necessarily mean you get to win, or even survive. Hard truth. Nintendo is the best in the world at making a very specific kind of game that used to rule the world, but doesn't anymore. But it's not just that. Much as I'd love to be able to lay the sorry state of these affairs on an industry and a medium that in some key respects I really do think has lost its way, Nintendo made a lot of their own problems. Their loyalty to tradition and heritage when it comes to their characters and their fans has always been a strength, but doing the same thing in business and technology management has undeniably injured them long term. Yes, it's true, the vanguard, bread-and-butter Nintendo games wouldn't have gained much from online capabilities, but not even trying to engage online gaming as a market concept until after everyone else was not the right decision. Neither was continuing to lock content to consoles instead of accounts. The Virtual Console, great idea. The Virtual Console running more like Columbia House than iTunes, not a great idea. And it's all part of the same basic miscommunication. The form of electronic media and its delivery in the 21st century is, to a much greater extent than ever before, consumer dictated. For good or ill, people demand options, and the pre-internet metropolitan Japan-centric model Nintendo clings to, where you will buy this system if you want this game, which you will play in this way, whether or not having a special, unique console primarily for playing meticulously crafted first-party games built exclusively with optimizing that hardware in mind is the best approach to make games or not isn't the issue. Even if it is, you can't run a company of Nintendo's size and financial responsibilities that way anymore. The center cannot hold.
God damn it.
Yep.
So what happens now?
Realistically, the Wii U is probably doomed. Not that they're going to stop making games for it, but the idea that it's going to be a realistic competitor to the Xbox One or PlayStation 4 is basically over. It'll get to the end of its cycle, they'll release some games for it, there may even be a sales uptick and they might break even, but the idea that it was going to be a major competitor or that Nintendo would stay on top, that's basically over as far as consoles are concerned.
Do they go software only like Sega?
I honestly don't know. The prospect of it is almost exciting, but on the other hand, the Nintendo menagerie has existed outside the evolution of the rest of the medium's taste and aesthetic fluctuation for so long, I don't know if they can ever really fit together comfortably now. Style and tone-wise, gaming has split almost completely in two. Anything with a deep control scheme, meaningful length, or genuine challenge has to be dark and serious and realistic, pitched mainly at angry teenage boys who want every entertainment decision to be a test for affirming this or that outdated, anachronistic vision of masculinity. On the other side, anything with a lighter or more fanciful setting or style pretty much has to be aimed younger, simpler, and often more quote-unquote casual. Where does that leave something like Star Fox, a deep challenge-oriented aerial combat shooter where the main characters are cartoon animals? We already saw what they did to Bomberman and the Bionic Commando.
Stop. I get it.
I severely doubt they're going to do what Sega did. Sega went because they'd bet everything on the Dreamcast.
Speaking of the best stuff not getting to win.
Even if Nintendo shut down the Wii U tomorrow, they still have the 3DS kicking ass. Not necessarily the ass it needs to kick, but it's still kicking ass. But I don't necessarily think they want to be just a handheld company, since those days are probably numbered too. It's just a longer number. Look, I don't like the whole situation. In fact, I fucking hate it. But the question isn't whether Nintendo goes away as a console maker.
Then what is the question?
The question is whether Nintendo goes away before everyone else does.
Explain?
I'd say right now there's a 50-50 shot that we're in the last or next to last generation of consoles, or more specifically, the end of gaming-dedicated consoles with library exclusivity. And we've been heading that way for a while now. The Xbox, PS3, and even the Wii all trying to also be multimedia hubs along with playing games were a reaction to just that, but it's coming faster every day. Think about this. If you've got a smartphone or a tablet, you're theoretically carrying around your phone, books, internet, games, and camera all as one thing. Well, newsflash, in a decade or maybe less, that same principle is going to happen with your TV. Your PC, your web browsing, your stereo, your cable, your television, and your gaming, it's all going to be one thing. A single box to play or use 90% of your media, streaming or physical. The so-called Steam machines may not be the final form of this, but it's one more step on the road, and a big one. I'm not necessarily thrilled about this. I think we'll end up missing the idea of unique control schemes in favor of a universal standards. I don't like the idea of potentially having to update the equivalent of a home entertainment center as frequently as you update a PC, but convenience, cost, all signs point to this being the future. No more PC gaming, no more console gaming, just gaming. We will live to see the end of Nintendo consoles, but also the end of the Xbox and the effective end of the PlayStation, though I imagine Sony will transition to using the PlayStation name for branding on its versions of the Universal Media boxes.
Huh. Not the worst possible future, I guess.
The future sounded better in the past.
So that's really what you think the future of Nintendo is, then? Gradual, possibly even noble decline, either alongside or shortly followed by everyone else, and then hopefully reborn as a third party in an emerging one-console landscape?
More or less.
Is that what you want, though?
Want? What do I want? I'm the retro thinker. What I want is good games. What I want is the magic back. What I want is to will myself back to the golden age and out of this depressing modern world, back to when things made sense. But life, it seems, has other plans for me.
Fair enough. So what about hope?
Hope? What do you mean, hope?
What do you hope Nintendo does?
I hope they fight like hell.
Now we're talking.
I hope they fight like the last soldier in the last legion of the last army of a proud civilization that didn't deserve to go, but did.
That's the spirit.
And I hope they leave footprints so goddamn deep the world will never be able to forget that there were days when gods walked the earth.
Attaboy.
And failing that, I don't know, a proper sequel to Super Mario RPG might be nice.